Thank you so much, Mr. D'Souza, for the very warm welcome. When I look back, moments like this, moments when I get to spend time with a group of learning professionals are the moments that I really cherish the most. What a joy to be in your midst. I really wish it was in a face-to-face scenario, but let's make the best of the virtual opportunity that's available. So really complimenting for a summit like this. A very important, thing that this forum is doing, so compliments on that. Humanizing digital learning, I know there is a discussion immediately after this, but it's such an important, such a vibrant topic that we can even spend 2 full days on this, and that would still not be enough. So when I look back at the last 2 years, the challenge that has been posed not just to learning, but to all of us has been huge. If I have to talk about learning in particular, the skilling challenge, the skill gaps are huge. The skilling challenge that we are facing is very, very big. While that's the challenge that I'm talking about, I also see 2 big shifts that have happened in the last 2 years. While these changes started even before that, like with everything else, it got accelerated manyfold with the pandemic and with the change that happened after that. So one is skilling, learning is no more the last topic on anyone's list of agenda. Be it the business leaders' agenda, be it the HR leaders, be it employees, it's not the last item on the priority list. It has quickly moved up. Everyone is talking about it. Skilling is such an important thing that we need to be looking at. The second shift I also see is about the change in learner behavior. While push-based learning still happens in many, many quarters, what I also see is that thanks to many of the platforms which are available, learning in many, many ways is also pulled by very many segments of a population. So these are 2 very, very positive shifts. And if you're going to leverage on it, then the challenge will no more be a challenge for us. And a key lever towards converting this challenge into an opportunity is what lies right at the center here, which is digital. Digital is going to be a key enabler for us towards leveraging the challenge into an opportunity. And I would like to take a step back and talk about, even if we remove the word digital from this equation, even if we just keep learning, humanizing learning is very, very important. And I'm sure that, many of you here would agree that even in the pre-pandemic scenario, did we always humanize learning? Maybe yes, maybe no. What do I mean by humanizing learning? It's about putting the learner at the center of all that we are doing. Be it deciding what is the agenda that we're going to run. As we are delivering the sessions, do we put the learner at the center? At multiple phases of the learning value chain, are we putting the learner at the center? And honestly, if I have to cross my heart and respond to that, yes, we did that very many times, but there were also times when we did not do that because we were too preoccupied with many other things. We were preoccupied with the content. We are preoccupied with the methodologies. We were preoccupied with the technology. So there were many other preoccupations that came in the way. And I don't think I would give myself a score 10 on 10 for humanizing learning. There was a gap which was existing. And in between has come this huge piece, digital, which has changed many, many things for us drastically. And if you're not going to humanize it, the pull that we are looking at, the skilling gap that we are talking about will continue to be the skill gap. A very interesting topic, a very powerful topic, and I really look forward to learning a lot from each one of you as well. And I didn't want to jump into, in fact, I like the process of working on this presentation. It got me to do a lot of learning, a lot of thinking, a lot of reflecting, a lot of interacting with other peers as well. I didn't want to jump into solutioning immediately saying, if we like to humanize digital learning, then this is the checklist of 1, 2, 3 items that we need to be looking at. So took a step back and came up with these 4 factors which are imperatives for humanizing. Starts with understanding the customer, which is the learner. Do we really know what a learner is like? How can we understand a learner's psyche? A learner's mindset, a learner's needs, requirements becomes very, very important. It's also about strengthening focus on multiple things, especially since here we're talking about digital. How do I strengthen my focus, my own understanding of digital? How do I strengthen focus around some of the basic elements of L&D? One of the pieces that I realized is that while we are talking about digital learning, some of the fundamentals still remain the same. The fundamentals of driving a learning organization, fundamentals of driving the learning function, I think they are going to be there forever. Be it the foundational piece of, do I have very, very strong, robust content? How am I designing it? What methodologies am I using? It will change. In a virtual scenario, what methodologies you're using are going to be different from what you use in a brick and mortar scenario. But yes, focusing on methodologies is important. So some of the fundamentals remain. It's about delivering an experience. It's not about delivering a program. It's not about delivering a session. It's not even about delivering a journey, but it's delivering an experience. How are we doing that? And as I spoke about a while back, it's about remembering fundamentals. Going back to the basics, strengthening it there is something which is very, very important. I would like to take a pause here and see if there are any questions, any comments, any thoughts. I'll go back to the Zoom screen for a moment and see if there are anything that you're wanting to share. Since I'm on the presentation screen, I'm not able to look at the Zoom screen. So if somebody can help me, if there are any questions on the chat window, that would be helpful.
Sure, ma'am, not right now. If there is any, I'll let you know.
Sure, thank you so much. I will move on. So starting with the first imperative of understanding the customer, the learner. Okay, I'm a little averse to using the word learner because I'm a strong proponent of the modern work learning practices by Jane Hart. So she says the moment you say a learner, there's a divide that comes in between. You're putting yourself on a higher pedestal. You're the one who is teaching, there's somebody who is learning. So while there's a lot of learner in the slide, but in the top line, I didn't want to use that. What are the different personas that we have? Because it's not just one kind of customer, one kind of learner that we're encountering. There are multiple different segments, and it's not just age-based, it's not just basic demographic-based. There can be multiple other personas that you look at. Are we understanding them persona-wise? For instance, about 2 years back, we were re-articulating the content strategy at Reliance. And one of the important changes that we brought in was that let's have a persona-based approach to our content. Because what, let's say, a very senior leader is wanting to learn as compared to, let's say, a millennial is wanting to learn could be different. So similarly, we carved out multiple personas within the Reliance ecosystem and said, can we look at them differently? Let's not have a one-size-fits-all approach. So the different personas, do we even know which are the personas that is existing in our ecosystem? And, and it's not just about the broad level personas that we talk about in a retail context. Your sales force at the retail outlets is a very big persona that you have. But even within that, there are multiple sub-personas that you can be looking at. Can we make an effort to understand that? What are our learner engagement practices? How frequently are we engaging with them? How frequently are we having conversations with them around what are they wanting to learn? And I would like to take a moment to look at this picture on the right, which is the Golden Circles by Simon Sinek. Starting with why. Why is someone wanting to learn? Can be very, very different. Somebody may want to learn to advance in their career. Somebody may want to learn to do better on their current job. Somebody may want to learn to sustain their job. Job is at risk. I'm wanting to ensure that I have a job in hand. Somebody may want to learn out of curiosity. So what is the purpose of learning? What is driving them to learn? Can we articulate? Can we understand the why? And that will happen if you're going to engage with them frequently. And personally, if I have to, do an introspection and give myself a score on learner engagement, I don't think it's too high. While my team does a great job of it, and I'm realizing this is an area that I should be looking at. With the different, learner groups, how frequently do I engage? How well do I engage? Is something that we need to be looking at. And some of these live conversations can be very, very powerful. It can be throwing us stuff which we wouldn't have thought. For instance, this morning I was in a series of interviews with some of our high potential youngsters. So one of them was talking about if you look at a manufacturing organization, now can we have a lot of just-in-time learning, point-of-need learning? Because today, as the person is doing the job in the manufacturing site, there are questions, queries that come up. And what they do is the very well-known traditional method of picking up the phone and talking to somebody and checking, which is good. That's pure learning. But can there be a technology aid which is made available, which can, which can be readily accessible by them? So your learner engagement can bring in multiple such touch points for you, wherein learning can be powerful across the learning value chain. Learner behavior, and when I talk about learner behavior, when you do learner personas, when you do learner engagement, all of that is going to throw up insights around what is the kind of behavior which the learner is displaying. And it is not just within the organization. We need to engage with our employees, understand, but also looking at the world outside. For instance, a couple of days back, I had one of the content providers outside. We have not subscribed to them, but this agency reached out saying, from your organization in the last so many months, so many people have access to courses. These are the kind of courses. So that was a wonderful insight. So even if it's a platform that we have access to, do we take a deeper dive to see what are people doing on that platform? What are they learning? What kind of courses are they learning? When are they learning? Okay, it's also an important, because at times you would find people learning a lot over the weekend. There could be times when there's a particular day of the week when they are learning. There's a particular time of the day when they could be investing in learning. A lot of these behaviors that you will be able to unravel if you're going to observe a little more. Okay, so it's not just data from inside, it's data from platforms outside, which can give powerful insights, all of this leading to learner insights. This is, in a way, a simplified design thinking process. If I'm not going to do it, if I don't even understand who my customer is, what is the human that I'm catering to, how will I be able to humanize my learning? Sounds very, very commonsensical, but as I said, there are very many times when we get caught in this busy trap and we may not spend time to do it because we have a lot of other things to do. So taking a step back and looking at these pieces is an extremely important, I would even say, strategic stuff that we will have to do if we are to humanize digital learning. Moving on to the next piece around strengthening focus, the visual on the right is just to, display the clutter that exists in front of us. There's lots and lots and lots which is available. Okay. The first piece here when I'm talking about strengthening focus is, do we understand technology? The abundance of technology which is available outside, from that, how is it that I can leverage something for learning? What is the learning potential that each one holds? If you look at some of the lists like the top 100 learning tools for the year, which the Modern Workplace Learning Organization publishes every year, you'd be a little surprised to look at the kind of tool they're talking about. It's not necessarily a LinkedIn Learning or a Skillsoft or Coursera. They're also on the list. But there are also many other technology tools that people are leveraging to learn. So do we know about it? As learning professionals, we need to be on top of it. Do we know about it? There's a lot of talk about metaverse. Okay, and my antenna went up, and some weeks back, when I realized there's a huge potential that metaverse holds, especially for learning, for providing immersive learning. What is metaverse? It's still not, maybe they're fully in the form that we would want. But are we anticipating, it's not just about understanding the current technology stack which is there, but what is the future technology going to do for us? Can we be the front runners in that? So understanding technology not at a broad level, but at a deep level becomes extremely, extremely important. And when I say the current stack, especially within our organization, we have a lot of technology tools available. How are we looking at it? What is our approach towards it? Of all the tools that we have, what is it that we use for micro-learning? What is it that we use for point-of-need learning? What is it that we use for deep skilling? When do we use a VILT? When can we drive self-learning? So do we have a perspectives around all of these things clear becomes extremely important, because it can be a very, very good tool, but driven for the wrong purpose, that humanizing element is going to go missing. So not just understanding technology, but how does it serve my purpose? What is my approach towards it is an extremely important piece that we need to be looking at. To talk about an example here, we have been having LinkedIn Learning with Reliance for more than 3 years now. A very powerful learning platform utilized, by a lot of our employees. And we introduced Coursera about 2 years back. So initially there was confusion. People were doing LinkedIn Learning, people were doing Coursera, and we had to quickly step in and bring in clarity saying, LinkedIn Learning is more for micro-skilling, point-of-need learning, wanting to learn quickly, use LinkedIn Learning. Coursera is for deep skilling. Okay. So the moment we started speaking that language, slowly the larger organization also picked it up. So it took us time for us as well to get to that clarity. So do we have clarity around, we might have multiple tools, be it our quizzing tools, be it our survey tools, be it many other platforms that we have. But what for which purpose is something that we need to articulate very, very strongly. Can we also have a roadmap? Okay, we might have a number of things available with us at this point of time. Linking it back to what I was talking earlier about the learner needs, the learner personas, what is it that they are wanting, as well as a business context. What kind of learning tools should I have? What kind of technology should I have going ahead? What purpose will it serve? What are my business aspirations? Where is it going? Accordingly, what is the kind of learning that I should be delivering, and hence what kind of tools? For example, we have been having this annual learning event called Spectrum, which is a big hit. The focus here is to build a culture of learning. And 2020, like everyone else, we had a big challenge because it used to happen in a physical format. We used to travel from site to site doing this event. But when it had to happen virtually, it looked like a big challenge, but we partnered with the IT team, developed an in-house platform, happened very, very well. 2021 was a different kind of a challenge because we had done it all the previous year. How do we make it different? How do we elevate it a level higher? So we introduced 3D technology. We introduced elements of immersive learning. The platform, the feel on the platform was very, very different. It was a walkthrough experience that we gave. So the challenge given to us for this year is that will not do for 2022. 2021 is gone. Don't try to replicate the same experience. Can we have an avatar coming into people's, as people log into the Spectrum portal? Can there be an avatar which is coming and, taking them through that journey? So what is the kind of roadmap that we have? How do we can we think future? What does it look like? What are we trying to do? Becomes very, very important. And the last, but the most important piece around outcomes. In doing all of this, I know in 2020, when we started, there was a mad rush. All of us were converting things to virtual very, very quickly. And the fact, and that was the right thing to do at that point of time, the fact that there was learning continuity ensured, which enabled business continuity, programs continue to happen, learning continue to happen, was an important piece there, but we have moved much beyond. So what are the outcomes that we are chasing at this point of time? Have our metrics gone through any difference as compared to pre-pandemic scenario? Are we still chasing the same metrics? What metrics have changed automatically? What needs a little more focus? For instance, one of the metrics that we used to chase was around what is the ratio between instructor-led training and self-learning. And with no effort post-pandemic, this metric has changed. Okay, because there's a lot more of self-learning happening. What we aspired happened with little effort. That can no longer be a metric because that's been achieved. We have reached, the peak with respect to that. So what other metrics should we be looking at? What outcomes are we chasing overall as the learning organization, and what outcomes are we looking at specifically for different initiatives is something that we should be strengthening our focus on. Moving on, delivering experience, a lot has been spoken about this in the past few years, and experience is not just with respect to learning, it's overall employee experience. How can we make it as a very, very inspiring experience? And the first piece is around how can we make it seamless and intuitive? And I really liked it when a couple of weeks back we were launching a People Tech platform, and we had the senior leader addresses, and this person said, I don't want, the moment I see a how to use guide coming along with any gadget or any device, I say it is not intuitive. whatever you design should be so intuitive that people with absolutely no kind of support can get in, know what to do it and come out. Okay. So can we create, anything that we do with respect to digital learning, can it be as seamless and as intuitive? It is a piece that we need to be looking at. And there's a lot of stuff which has happened in the last few years with respect to learning experience platforms, but I see that we have still some more distance to cover. And the moment our learning platform can become like an Instagram or a Facebook, as intuitive, as attractive, I think creating that learning pool is not going to be difficult. I'm not undermining the importance of content. Content is the backbone, but it's also about, is the experience, can I reach anything in one click? Is something which is important. The most important piece around digitalizing is also about personalization. In fact, when I started working on this, the first piece that came to me was personalization. And then a lot of other, I realized one step back, many steps back, and many other things evolved. Okay. So we were talking about mass customization some years back. That itself was an achievement at that point of time. So when we had, digital learning platforms go live, which was more like a one-size-fits-all, in those days, it became a solution to what was a challenge at that point of time. But today it is about just for me. Just like at the point of need, I need something. Can I have something which is completely tailored to my requirement? What is the level of personalization that we are looking at? We have some really good recommendation engines which are there, which do some level of personalization, but it's a journey that, which has to still evolve. But to me here, I'm not even talking about, the technology evolution. That's definitely important, but I'm also talking about the evolution in our thinking. We cannot have the same set of things happening for everyone, even if it is the same program happening for the second batch. What is the kind of personalization that I can be looking at? And the moment the technology is able to give something which is just for me, that aversion towards I need to be in the classroom to learn, I cannot learn as well using technology, is going to go away completely. So how can we personalize based upon multiple demographic factors? And the piece that we saw on the earlier slide with respect to why are they wanting to learn, what are they wanting to learn, the moment, as well as with respect to learner styles. Okay. Learning styles are very, very different. There's a visual style, there's an auditory style, there's a kinesthetic style. But even in the context of digital learning, it is easily possible to embed all of this into it. In fact, I was debating as to whether I should use a slide deck or not for this session. But then I realized that most of us tend to be visual learners. And if I'm just going to be talking you through this without the aid of slides, but even as I talk, I can paint pictures, I can address visual learners even as I'm talking as well, but nothing like having an anchor in front of you. So it is also personalization based upon learner styles. This is your learner style, and hence these kind of learning tools is something which is really going to help you a lot. Can we customize? It's the same content, but how it gets delivered digitally. It can be a podcast for some. It can be a micro, it can be a mobile nugget for some. It can be a do-it-yourself activity for some. So depending upon the learner styles, are we able to personalize the learning offerings as well becomes very, very important. And an important piece is that as it is, all of us, our employees are going through a lot of stress. There's a digital fatigue, there's an overall fatigue. And even within that, there's a huge digital fatigue which employees are going through. And in that context, the moment you're going to push something, that's not going to happen. How can we create a pull? Okay. And if you ask me, have I found the solution for this? Not as yet. It's a journey. It's about creating a culture for learning. Multiple levers that we can leverage, but it's not going to happen automatically. So are we using their managers as levers? How good are our technology? Is it a one-click technology that we have? Is it personalized? Is it completely suited to their need? Do they have clarity on what to use when? I had this, senior leader talking to me very recently. We are launching a tech savviness, digital savvy initiative very soon. And it's completely built on curated content. So this person was like, It's possible to learn all of these topics on our own, but then we get confused. Okay. So the moment, but the content that you have put together is so very good. And that's a pull. So it's about, ensuring the right set of content is there. So multiple things that we will have to look at to ensure that there is a pull that we are creating. How do we celebrate learning? Okay, so an important piece that needs to come into the learning ecosystem as such can be micro celebrations, can be small recognitions, but celebrating learning is very, very important. Maybe for completing a learning path, for implementing those changes of the workplace, what are those different celebratory moments that we can create for our learners is something that we will have to look at, because learning is going to stick. It's not just they're going to come back to learn, but what they learned, their inclination to implement is going to be huge. And the ripple effect that it's going to have, because when I see celebration happening, it's going to influence 10 others, 20 others, 100 others to go do that. And especially in today's context, when all of us are under stress, any reason to celebrate is good. So bringing in celebration to the context of learning becomes very, very important. Moving on to the last, but a very important aspect is about remembering fundamentals. Focus on content and the context. I like this phrase that somebody made. They say content is king, but context is kingdom. So, both are very, very important. How do we focus on? You can create a very good experience platform. It's a seamless, intuitive experience. It's personalized. All of that is done. But at the end of the day, the quality of content that we're giving is not up to the mark. Then that's not going to serve the purpose at all. And can you contextualize it? And that's where I would say it's not just reliance on the off-the-shelf content that's available for us outside. How can we also strengthen our contextualized content catalog becomes very, very important. It's also about, our design skills, be it instructional designing, experience designing. It can be a 30-minute session that I'm delivering virtually, but does it adhere to the design fundamentals? Am I designing it as an experience? Am I taking care of different learning styles? Does it have the basics of other design principles which are there? So enhancing design skills becomes very, very important, a very foundational skill that I would say is required by learning professionals. The 70-20-10, if you're talking about the first piece is that we have excessively focused on the 10, the 70-20, while it has been there for more than 30 years. The structured focus that needs to come on that, it happens on its own, that's a different thing. Structured focus that needs to become on that is really not there. And even where it happens, what is the digital support that we are giving to it in today's context becomes very, very important. For instance, we are building a learning experience platform internally in Reliance, which will cater to everything. It can be a coaching experience that you're driving, mentoring experience. It can be an action learning project. It can be a job shadowing experience. All of that can be managed, driven by the LXPs, how we are designing it. And it's not just about making it digital, but what is the personal touch we are getting there? How are we? Is it customized to that particular individual? What is the kind of? I remember one of these leadership interventions that I was driving in one of my earlier organizations. It was for the topmost 7 or 8 leaders that we were doing. And there was a digital buddy that they had. And it was not actually an intrusion. They liked it very much because every day morning, it would give them reminders about you're supposed to do with respect to that journey that they were going through. You're required to do 1, 2, 3 things. You have something to complete by tomorrow. So the kind of nudges which it was giving ensured that they could stay focused on it despite the very busy life that they were leading. So especially when you're talking about the 70-20, how can digital become a buddy and an enabler is something that we will have to look at. Learning to learn, an extremely important piece, a foundational skill, not just for learning professionals, but for all. There's a very good course on learning to learn in Coursera. You may want to explore that, which talks about the brain science as well and comes into learning to learn. If you're talking about, bringing in the human element, making self-learning come really alive, then there are very many times when people struggle, because they don't know about their learning styles, they don't know about what kinds of learning is available. How can I, what can I leverage for what? Which is the platform for this, which is the platform for that. So learning to learn, building that as a capability, which is even more foundational to learning agility, I would say, becomes important. So some of these fundamentals when we are focusing on will also ensure that the learning that we are driving meets its objective, is able to excite our learners, and the desired objectives are achieved. I would like to conclude with one last piece around, so what does it mean for the modern learning professional? Because at the end of the day, if we are the ones driving it, the humanizing digital learning is something that we are expected to do. So what are some of the shifts that we have to make? And not everything is a shift, something is a plus. So starting with, it's no more about digital savviness. We kept talking about digital savviness for long. Today it is about digital depth. Do I really understand technologies, the power of the technologies, that analytics, that data has to drive learning for my organization? For instance, we run a particular leadership development program. And one of the problem statements that came up was that it was twofold. One, we found that a certain percentage of participants were dropping out midway for whatever reason. Second, even those who were completing, were they graduating? Okay, were they picking up capabilities to the required levels? Both of these were problem statements. So how do we solve it? Well, there are multiple other things that we're doing. We're also seeking the support of the analytics team to look at, is there something that needs to be done differently with respect to participant identification itself? What are the other insights that data can throw for us, analytics can throw for us, is something that we're looking at. So the power that data has is huge, but we must first understand it to be able to seek that support. Do I know what analytics can do, what big data can do, what technology can do, what AR, VR can do? Without understanding it, we are not going to be able to leverage it at all. Learning used to be looked at as an art. It's a very creative piece. It's about creating something out of nothing. You create that very beautiful session and experience and deliver it. Yes, it continues to be all of that. Learning will be an art, but it is also a science. Do we understand, the different learning styles? Do we understand the brain science? So this is one of the pieces that ATD, Association for Talent Development, keeps talking about. So do I understand the science element of learning? Becomes important. It's no more just about content creation, it's also about content curation. And for some time, I used to think both are the same, but they're not. Okay, for instance, the example that I was talking about, the technology program that we are running, content is available outside. I just need to know which one to pick up, and there's abundance available. How do I pick the right content? What are my guiding principles going to be there? For this particular one, we said it has to be reasoned, it has to be relevant, and it has to be simple, easy to understand. Okay, so with that parameter, we have pulled in content from different sources and put together and created a journey out of it. So it's not something that everyone can do. So it is not just content creation, it's content curation. It's not just instructional designing, but experience designing. I've spoken about it. To curate an experience, for instance, instructional designing just talks about what happens inside the session. I remember this, one of my earlier managers who will be my lifelong mentor talking about, this is about the brick and mortar days. With respect to experience design, he would say, it's important how you engage with the learner right from the moment he or she gets into the session. You have your early birds who come in half an hour before the session. What is the experience that you're giving? Are they left to themselves to keep staring at the ceiling or staring at their mobiles? Or is there something that you're doing to engage with them from that moment on? What are we doing in the virtual scenario? For instance, even when we have a session, a webinar or a VILT, we will have people coming in 5 minutes before, there are people walking in 5 minutes later. So that 10 minutes, how do you manage? Is there a blank screen that they're seeing, or is there something else that can be done? And this person would also go to the extent of saying, can you tap all their senses? What they see, what they smell, what they hear, can it all spell learning? So that's experience design. It's not just learning in a context. Some of I definitely know in the manufacturing sector, we have a set of people who say, I can learn only in front of a facilitator. In a classroom, probably the same is the case with retail as well. how do we bring in that mindset shift saying learning can happen in a context, but learning also needs to happen in the flow as they are working. The example that I gave a little while back, saying as the person is working, why should he or she call up somebody to check, can there be a technology aid? And in fact, we did a small pilot on this some years back using an AR tool for on-the-job for point-of-need learning. And our retail organization was very quick to pick it up, and they've done some fabulous work with respect to AR-enabled point-of-need learning, especially for service engineers, which really helps them at the point as they are servicing. If I have a doubt, what do I do about it? So that's kudos to our retail team who have implemented this technology very, very beautifully. And the last one, it's not just skill building, but it is capability development, and it's both. Okay. We have been looking on building multiple skills, be it digital skills, soft skills, the other functional technical skills that we talk about. But can we look at capabilities, which simply put is an aggregation of different skills that come together? And it's not just capabilities for individuals, but it's also capability building for the organization. And that's an important shift that we will have to make because the ask from organizations, ask of the organization from the learning function is huge, because the upskilling need is very, very high, reskilling need is very, very high. And what they're expecting from us is huge, and we will be able to meet up to that demand if we develop as capability development professionals. It requires a certain mindset shift. Many things that we're looking at today, for instance, a culture of learning is a capability building. Digital mindset is a capability. There are multiple capabilities which will make organizations successful today. And we need to focus on both. It's not either or. We need to focus on skills, which is relatively more short term, and also capabilities which are longer term. Like this example of during one of such sessions, I heard one of my co-panelists talk about skills are more like leaves on the tree. There's a tree model of capability development. Skills are more like the leaves on the tree, which will, the tree will shed it after some time, new leaves will come up. But capabilities are like the roots, much more long-lasting, long-standing. So we need to focus on both. Okay. So some foundational pieces, which is learning agility, networking, business acumen, I think that will keep us in good stead. We can't ignore that at all. We keep talking about learning agility for the rest of the organization. What about our own learning agility? Becomes very, very important. So with that, I would like to, stop my monologue here. I'm very, very keen to have some inputs from you. Really looking forward to it.
Hi, ma'am. Thanks for the interesting presentation. We have a quick question here. Okay, just a second. The question says that, ma'am, a lot of people are upgrading themselves using Coursera, etc. Do they really add value? How do organizations look at such courses? And does organization incorporate these or encourage employees to learn on their own?
Okay. So personal learning is a big piece. People will continue to do that. They have their personal aspirations and all of that. So that will continue to happen. Same time, organizations will also have to look at deep skilling as an agenda. And many of these digital platforms, be it Coursera, be it LinkedIn, can be leveraged. So we have org-recommended learnings which can be done utilizing these platforms. We have individuals who will also go and do it. There are many times when the two can meet. Okay, I'm looking at people with certain skill sets, and here are my set of people who have done a course on Coursera, one of that. They display that skill at a considerably higher level of proficiency, then why not? Okay, so personal learning will continue to be, will continue to happen, but it's also about organizations leveraging it to run the organizational learning agenda as well.
Thank you, ma'am. There's another question for you, which says, with the context changing at a rapid pace, how or what does one ensure relevant content?
Stay in touch with the environment. I don't think need identification on an annual basis is relevant anymore. You will have to, keep identifying needs on the flow. And as I said, it's not just about reaching out to internal stakeholders to identify, it's also about looking outside, what is happening in the world outside, so that I'm able to bring in that outside in perspective and ensure I update my content catalog, I update my program calendar. It's not about annual calendars any longer. To give a simple example, we were running a session for some of our high potential talent, and we had a senior IT leader come and talk to them about digital mindset. And the questions which were coming to the speaker gave us a lot of insights around what are their learning needs. And we quickly curated, and within 25 days, we curated a learning journey for them on digital savviness and made it available. So you should have your eyes and ears open at multiple places for you to pick up what are the needs and also act on it very quickly. Because like olden days, if you're going to take 6 months to curate a learning journey, by then the need is already gone.